Good morning, students. Today we will discuss Charles Taylor, Politics of Recognition. He has said many aspects, interrelated aspects, in that essay. But what I found the central uh, aspect of this essay is that Charles Taylor is a critic to the liberalism. Though equal respect is one of the cardinal principles of liberalism. Charles Taylor is critical on that equal respect, right? Or politics based on equal respect. And to him, there are two, modes of politics based on equal respect. And these two modes are in conflicting with one another. One is the politics of positive discrimination and politics of non-discrimination. Whether it is politics of non-discrimination or positive discrimination, the it has its own problem. I mean, politics of positive discrimination has the problem as it violates the principles of non-discrimination, and the principles of non-discrimination assumes that people are same, society is a homogeneous society. So liberalism assumes that in some situation politics of discrimination or difference principle must be applied, and in some situation principles of non-discrimination should be applied, what is called blind principle. Now both these principles are important to establish a equal society. Neutral approach to the difference and blind principle, it seems to be just. I'm repeating, neutral approach between difference and blind principle. Difference means principles of positive discrimination. Blind principle means principles of non-discrimination. It seems to be right, but to Charles Taylor, there is a problem even if you are adopting a neutral approach to difference and blind principle, because for him it will establish, at the end it will establish a hegemonic and homogeneous culture, and in that hegemonic and homogeneous culture, minority and suppressed culture will be forced to take a alien culture. That means minority and suppressed culture will be asked to join a mainstream culture, a majority culture. Right. Hence, to Charles Taylor, this is not only inhuman, but also highly discriminatory. So what I can remember about Pareto. Now to Pareto, if you read the Circulation of Elite, he has said it, that once masses become elite, then they lose the character of the masses, they try to become the elite. And if all masses will become elite, then the mass culture will vanish. This is the fear of Charles Taylor. So let me come to that reading, let me start that reading what he has said it, what Charles Taylor has initiated his argument and how he has proceeded. Right. Now to Charles Taylor, demand for recognition is the central of politics, demand for recognition. And he's saying the need and demand for recognition, it was there during the nationalist movement in politics. Remember Indian nationalist movement. The freedom fighters, they were demanding recognition from the British Empire. And it is because of this movement for recognition, Indian nationalist movement, it was getting a solidarity. In fact, this demand for recognition, it was a force behind the nationalist movement. Now this demand also there, this demand may be there in a number of ways in today's identity politics. Right. Now demand for recognition, it can be in many ways, many forms. In the nationalist movement, the demand for recognition, it was something else. And today in identity politics, you can see there are number of ways people demand their recognition. In some situation, I want my recognition to be protected on the basis of region, on the basis of caste, on the basis of nationhood, on the basis of gender. The same person have multiple identity, and that same person is trying to protect all his identity in the public sphere. Hence, the same person is engaged in a number of ways to sustain his recognition. So as I said, the demand for recognition is there in number of ways in today's identity politics. It can be demanded on behalf of caste, on behalf of gender, on behalf of region, and so on. In overall, this politics of recognition leads to the establishment of a multicultural society. There is a link between recognition and identity. There is a link between recognition and identity. Our identity is shaped by the recognition. When I'm saying our identity are shaped by the recognition, it also means our identity are also shaped by the absence of the recognition, or our identity is also formed by the misrecognition. That means If I will recognize you, then you will develop a different identity. If I will not recognize you, then you will form a different identity in comparison to the last identity, in comparison to the past. Suppose if I misrecognize you, if I will understand you what you are not, then you will develop altogether a different identity. So non-recognition and misrecognition to anybody can inflict harm to the other. So if I am not properly recognizing you, then I am not contributing towards the development of your appropriate identity. If I misrecognize or non-recognize you or misrecognize you, then you develop a identity what is not genuine to your personality. For example, feminist argues that patriarchal societies have been induced to adopt a depreciatory image of themselves. As a result, women have internalized a picture of their own inferiority, incapable of taking advantage of new opportunities. So one can understand it from the argument of feminists. Now, feminists are saying that this patriarchal societies has not recognized or it has misrecognized the woman. As a result, women have developed an identity and women have internalized that identity what has been created by the non-recognition and misrecognition of a patriarchal society. As a result, women started feeling themselves inferior, incapable of taking advantages of new opportunities. Right. You can remember about Fanon. I gave a talk. Fanon is also saying the same thing in the context of race. How white people have defined the black and how black they have internalized the saying of white over black. Now, this is something deeply problematic. So, if the other side is not recognizing or it is misrecognizing, then the self develop a error identity or self developed a identity which is not genuine to it, and it is a huge or it is harming the others, right? So if I am not recognizing you, if I am misrecognizing you, then I am actually harming you. This is not the right way, right? Now, what is true in the case of gender, what has been referred by feminist scholar, the same is also true in the context of race, caste, colonized people, etc. Their own self depreciation has become one of the most potent instrument of their own oppression. Now, this is something natural. The self depreciation is natural, it is the natural outcome of this misrecognition or non recognition. And this self depreciation is in fact their own oppression. This self depreciation caused by misrecognition and non recognition is the instrument of their oppression. Right. So, how to understand the oppression? Now, oppression can be understood that oppression, I'm repeating, oppression can be understood that how this non-recognition and misrecognition causes the self-depreciation. You yourself don't believe that you can do that. You yourself believe that you are inferior. You are incapable. Now, this is something dangerous. Now, the misrecognition, whether internal or not, shows not just a lack of due respect, it inflicts a grievous wound, saddling its victim with a crippling self hatred. Hence, due recognition becomes vital for the human need. Now, what danger this misrecognition? You know, misrecognition, again, it is more dangerous than the non recognition. Misrecognition is dangerous than the non recognition. Whether this misrecognition is intentional or not, but this misrecognition shows that if I am misrecognizing any person, it shows that I do not have due respect to that other person. Now, it is due to this undue, or it is due to this misrecognition, I am pushing that person towards hating himself. That means that person starts hating himself or herself due to my misrecognition. Hence, to Charles Taylor, recognition becomes vital for human personality. To develop your personality, you have right to be recognized. If someone is not recognizing you, if someone is misrecognizing you, then that other is causing harm to you, that other is destroying your personality. Now, how to develop your personality? To develop your personality, you requires due recognition. That's why it is a vital human need. Right. So far we were discussing how identity is related with recognition. When I'm saying recognition, it means non-recognition and misrecognition. Right. As I have said, that today in identity politics, different identities are asserting their right to be, or asserting their recognition in the public sphere. As a result, we are developing a multicultural society. Two things or two changes have brought the issue of identity and recognition. And these two issues are collapse of social hierarchy, and second, the emergence of a democratic culture. Right? If you see the traditional society, such identity, such a demand for recognition was not there, as the society was hierarchical and society was guided by some universal, laws. Now it is due to the entry of modernity, the social hierarchy got collapsed and the universal laws were challenged. As a result, the suppressed identity in the traditional society, it started the movement for recognition to protect their identity. I said it is due to the entry of modernity, the identity politics got strengthened. And democracy is a product of that identity politics. So the second change is the emergence of a democratic society. Now it is due to the democratic society, issues of identity and recognition got strengthened. Now this social hierarchy was the basis for honor in traditional society. Right? Now in traditional society, the question of honor was very important. And when I'm saying honor, honor is not related with any individual, rather it is related with collective or group. So honor was very important. Honor was intrinsically related and linked with inequality. Some were having honor and not everyone. Honor is also a similar term that is related with the identity. Identity is related with the individual or group. Honor is related with a group, honor of the family. And if the family is having the honor, then it's part, I mean, the individual within that family, they have also honor. But the same honor was not with everybody or every family or every group. In traditional society, some families were having honor, and many families they don't have honor. Now, against this notion of honor, we have a modern notion of dignity, now used in a universal sense and egalitarian sense. Now, in the modern society, we rejected that honor since honor was linked with inequality. And instead of that, we started using dignity, that every, and dignity is related with every individual. It is not related with any group. And this dignity, we understood it, that we understood it in a universal sense and egalitarian sense. That means If you are an individual, then you have dignity. No matter whether you are belonging to this group, this caste or that caste, this religion or that religion, this region or that region, no matter, doesn't matter. If you are an individual, then you have dignity. Now, this concept of dignity is the only one compatible. This concept of dignity is only one compatible with a democratic society. Now, how Charles Taylor is understanding a democratic society. A democratic society is a society which gives respect, which protect the dignity of the individual. And what does it mean? Now, this means that the form of equal recognition have been the essential to the democratic culture. Now, to establish a democratic society, you must have democratic culture, and equal recognition is very much essential to a democratic culture. And when I'm saying equal recognition, it means respecting and sustaining and protecting the identity. Now, equal recognition in democracy has taken various forms over the years. Equal recognition. At the end of 18th century, the importance of recognition intensified by a new understanding of individual identity. Right. When I'm saying equal recognition may be at individual level, maybe at caste level, maybe at religious level. I mean, the state cannot discriminate between the religion. The state cannot discriminate on the basis of caste. The state cannot discriminate on the basis of gender. So this is nothing but the equal recognition. The state is recognizing everyone equally, irrespective of different cleavages. Right? So there are different ways of, equal recognition. There are different kinds of equal recognition. Now, at the end of 18th century, a new understanding of individual identity emerged, and it demanded a different kind of recognition. Now, individual is not part of any group and asserting his or her recognition. Now, individual is independent. Now, individual is thinking that there is a particular way of his own being, and that particular way of his being must be recognized. Let me give you an example what is individual identity. When a child grows, then he or she started conflict with his or her parents. He or she could not obey his or her parents always. In many times in your life, you have said to your parents, "Ki father or mother, I have already grown up. I have my own way of being. I have my own taste. I have my own emotion. I cannot guided by your way of being." When I'm saying way of being, it is the constitution of emotion, rationality, and many things. Now, when I'm saying myself is different or I am different from you, it means my way of being is different from your way of being. Now, At the end of 18th century, individual identity emerged and individual started asserting their way of being particular. Individuals started that each individual has different ways of being and that must be protected. Now individual identity was given importance due to the endowment of human being as a moral being capable of feeling what is right and wrong. Knowing right and wrong was a matter of cultivating the consequence of a action within. Now, why individual identity was given importance? Now, it is because of liberalism. Remember, Charles Taylor is critical about liberalism. I will let you know why and how he is critical about the liberalism subsequently. Now, it is the liberalism which declared that every individual is a moral being and every individual is capable of feeling what is right and wrong. What is right and wrong is not universal, it is relative. What is right for me that may not be right for you, but what is right for me, I have every right to believe in it. What is right, what I think, I have every right to believe in it. What is wrong, I have every right to believe in it. I will not be guided by the right and wrongs of others. Now, and how I am thinking about this right and wrong? Now, I am thinking or I am trying to know the right and wrong by calculating the consequence of action. If I will do that, then what will happen? If it will produce good, then it is right. If it produce bad, then it is wrong. If it produce pleasure, then it is right. If it produce pain, then it is wrong. That or overall, liberalism gave that freedom to the individual that you have every right to be guided by your own concept of right and wrong. As a result, this individual identity they strongly asserted to protect their way of being. Now, moral feelings is important because it is a means to the end of acting rightly. That means since every individual is a moral being and this moral feeling is important because it is a means to end of acting rightly. So what is the end? The end is how to act rightly. Now to act rightly, individuals must be given freedom in moral sense. So let the individual do according to his or her own conscience. Individuals should not be guided by others' conscience because all these conscience are not, we do not have a universal conscience. So that's why liberalism justified that individuals' own way of being must be the base of his or her own action. Now, moral assent comes when our feeling takes on independent and crucial moral significance, or when we are to be true or full human being. Now, to exercise your morality, you have to be independent, right? Suppose you are dependent, then you cannot exercise your morality. Now, to exercise your morality, you have to be independent in every sense, and thereby you can develop a true and full human. Thereby, uh, you construct your true and full human being. A full and true human being is possible only when you will become independent and you are capable to exercise on the basis of your moral, on the basis of your moral significance. Right. So let me take 2 minutes break, then I'm coming back. Welcome back. So, independence in every sense is required to all to exercise their moral significance or to exercise their thoughts and action on moral basis. Now, earlier, the moral views were being in touch with either God or good. Now, what is moral in the earlier period? Now, what is related with God, that is moral, or what is related with good, or in other words, what is related with the creator or creation, that was moral. But now, or when I'm saying in the earlier period, the moral was something which was related with the God, creator, or good creation, then I'm actually understanding morality in a universal sense. But now moral views are connected with our own conscience. Now each one have our own conscience. Now morality has become relative. Conscience means inwardness. Now our conscience does not exclude our being related to either God or good, but there is a connection. When I'm talking about conscience, our conscience cannot be complete without its relation with either God or good, either the creator or creation, right? So whether it is earlier period or whether it is modern period, morality is related with God and good. Earlier, it was more universal, and in modern period, it is relative. It is through conscience we are related with the God. Our conscience is, or it is through conscience our morality is related with good or God. Now, in this sense, road to God is passing through our self-awareness. When we understand that our conscience is related with God and good, then we indirectly saying that morality is not universal, morality is relative, morality is particular. Right. Now the differences between human being had this kind of moral significance. There is a certain way of being human. That is my own way. I am called upon to live my life in this way, not in imitation of anyone else. So, this moral significance, we have to understand moral significance that every individual they are they have a certain way of being. They have a certain way of being, and every individual live their life according to their own certain way, and there is no imitation of one another. If such is there, then we can say that there is moral significance, or there is moral significance of the individual. Right. Now, individual identity is related with this moral significance. It accords a moral importance to a kind of contact with yourself. If you have moral significance, then you have a moral contact with yourself, with your own inner nature, and it always see as in danger of being lost. Right. So if you are having a moral connection with yourself, if you are with your inner nature, then you always see that there is a danger of losing it. Am I being guided by my inner conscience, or am I being guided by the other invisible forces? So I am having always a fear of danger. Am I losing myself? Am I losing myself? And why I am feeling this danger? Now, partly through the pressure towards outward conformity. That means what my conscience tell, whether it will be accepted by the others or not. If it will not accepted by the other, then how I will exercise my conscience? Now there is always a requirement of outward conformity. Outward conformity. How to place place the language of my conscience so that I can able to protect my moral significance. Now, to exercise your moral significance, there is a requirement of thinking about the outward conformity. Right. So maybe by thinking of outward conformity, maybe that I am compromising my moral significance. Now, this fear is always there in the self. Whatever decision is being taken, whether I am there in that decision or not, right? So the way of being cannot be socially derived, but it must be inwardly generated. So the purpose is how to uh, how to protect your moral significance. How to protect your moral significance when, or how to protect your moral significance where there is no supportive outward conformity. If others are not accepting your moral significance, then how to place your moral significance, how to protect your moral significance, and how to feel your moral significance in the collective good, or in yes, in common good. Now, this inward generation is not monological. Okay, let me bring all of you to a different to a different paradigm. Right. So far we understood that moral significance is important, and this moral significance is something which is inwardly generated, that is generated from inside. This moral significance does not depend on outward conformity, right? So far. But then how to understand your inward generation, how to understand the moral significance, how to understand the language of your conscience, what is the source of the language of your conscience, why your conscience speaks in a particular way, what is the source of your moral significance. Now, the source of moral significance, or the source of this inward generation, it is not monological, it is not independent. Rather, there is a continuous dialogue between your conscience and the conscience of other. So the inward generation is not monological, not something each person accomplishes on his or her own. Rather, it is dialogical. So it is not something, or okay, my own conscience is not something that is mine absolutely. Rather, I have developed a conscience through my interaction, through my dialogue with others. through my dialogue with society, through my dialogue with individual, through my dialogue with nature. Now, through dialogue, I am developing my own conscience. So, my conscience is not mine absolutely. So, we define our identity always in dialogue with other. So if I am guided by the individual identity, if I am guided by my moral significance, and my moral significance is a product of my continuous dialogue with other, then my identity is related with dialogue with other. So we define our identity always in dialogue with, sometimes in struggle against this significant other. So that significant other means others that is significant to me. When I am having a dialogue with that significant other, then I am developing my own moral significance. I am developing my own individual identity. Right. Now, the contribution of significant other continues indefinitely. So, my conscience is not fixed. My conscience is also a continuous process, because I have been having a dialogue with that significant others always for indefinite period. Now, it is true that we can never liberate ourselves completely from those whose love and care saved us early in life, but we should strive to define ourselves in our own to the fullest extent possible, at least get some control over the influence of significant others, avoiding falling into any more such dependent relationship. Now, Charles Taylor is saying, no doubt there is a significant others, there is a continuous dialogue with that significant others, and thereby you develop your moral significance. But there is a possibility that while having a dialogue with that significant others, there is a possibility that you may be biased in favor of that significant others, and you think that is something your moral significance. Now, Charles Taylor is saying, no, it is not your moral significance. Moral significance means creating a genuine self by not being influenced by the significant others, rather by learning from the significant others with your rationality, not with your emotion and sentiment. With your rationality, by learning from the significant others, you are developing your own unique moral significance, then it is right. Right? So Charles Taylor knew that we all are we all are within those person who love us, who care about us, and their love and care shape our life, shape our thinking, shape our thought, and we cannot liberate ourselves from that, or from those person who love and care us. Right? We cannot. So there is a chance that we may define our own way of being according to their mindset, right? And there is a possibility that we may think that that is our moral significance. Who is significant others to me? Those who are loving, those who are caring, they are the significant others to me. I am continuously interacting with them, and thereby I am continuously developing my conscience, my moral significance. Now, there is a possibility that I may be controlled by them, thereby I may be biased in favor of significant others. Hence, I may wrongly think that I have developed my moral significance. Right. Now, here Charles Taylor is saying, despite we are in love and care of that significant others which shapes our early life, but we should strive to define ourselves on our own to the fullest extent possible. So you have to go above than the love and care. You have to use rationality. You have to learn from the significant others to create your own position, own values, own moral significance. And that is possible only when you control the influence of that significant others over you. So if you are able to control the influence of that significant others on you, then there is a possibility of creating your own moral significance. And how to control the influence of significant others on you? Only by avoiding falling into any more such dependent relationship. Now, how you will avoid or how you will control the influence of moral significance? Only when you become you become independent. If you depend, as long as you are depending on relationship, you cannot avoid the influence of significant others. You can avoid the influence of significant others when you are becoming independent. When I'm saying independent, it means both economic independence and emotional independence. You need to think about the politics of love and care. We have to think about intimate enemy. Let me tell you, it is not that a friend is 100% and an enemy is 100%. There is the quality of friendship within enemy, and there is qualities of enemyship within the friends. The parents, through their love and affection, they appear to be the friend of the child. But are they real friend of the child? It is because why I am saying the love and affection may take their child in a wrong way. Thereby, the child gets punishment in future. And here, the love and affection has caused pain to that child. So emotional independence is also very important. The parents should not have their emotional attachment with the students for all the time. The parents should also develop the rational attachment with the children. If parents are having emotional attachment without rational attachment with that child, then the parents is not helping that child to develop his or her moral significance. The parents are trying to control their child through their emotion, through their sentiment. So, thus, my discovering of my own identity does not mean that I work it out in isolation. So, my moral significance is not mine, absolutely. I have not developed my moral significance in isolation. Rather, I have negotiated with through dialogue with the significant others. And when I am having a dialogue with the significant others, I am having dialogue with partly, I am having dialogue overtly and I am having dialogue covertly. I am having dialogue with significant others. At the same time, I am having dialogue with myself. Hence, there is an other in self identification. That means there is a other in self identification. There is a other in self, there is a self in other. जो what has been said by Lord Krishna in Gita, मैं तुझ में हूं और तू मुझ में है. Now Charles Taylor is indicating to that. So my own moral significance is not mine. There is a contribution of other in that. I am part of your moral significance. You are part of my own moral significance. So a form of dependency is always there. Now Charles Taylor admits that dependency is there in the formation of moral significance. Now if you think about general recognition, you will find that it is built into the socially derived identity, as it is based on social categories. Not everyone, sorry, if you think about general recognition, you will find that it is built into the socially derived identity, as it is based on social categories that everyone takes for granted. Okay, now this is a different paradigm, Charles Taylor is discussing that whenever we talk about general recognition, then we understand this general recognition is not based on individual identity. It is based on a socially derived identity. So far, we have no movement that is related with the protection of individual identity. We have movements, or we have different identity movements that is related with socially derived identity, not individually derived identity. Right. We have fight for recognition, but that recognition is not to recognize the moral significance, to protect the moral significance of the individual. We do not have such movement, right? We have movements that is related with our social identity. Now, if identity is derived inwardly, then it has to win it through exchange and through accent, and the attempt can fail, right? So we have to, okay, sorry. No, I said that why we do not have any movement protecting the individual identity. Why we have movement that is related with the social identity. Why we have movement on general recognition. Why we do not have movement on individual recognition. It is because the individual identity has not completed. The individual identity, the formation of individual identity, the formation of moral significance, it is a continuous process, and it is continuously being derived through a exchange, through a continuous dialogue with the significant others. And there is possibility that this continuous dialogue may succeed or it may fail. So that's why the individuals, that there is no movement on individual identity. Now it is important to see how much an original identity is vulnerable to the recognition given or withheld by the significant others. Now, this is an important question to think that the identity, the individual identity, what I am asserting, to what extent my individual identity is mine, or to what extent my moral significance. I'm using individual identity and moral significance interchangeably. To what extent my moral significance is vulnerable to that significant others. There is possibility that what you think about your own moral significance, individual identity, that is not yours. That is not something genuine to your personality, to your potential. Maybe you have huge control of significant others in your life. That's why you are unable to understand your moral significance. You are unable to understand your original identity. There is a possibility. Now we need to think ourselves that to what extent my identity is original, or to what extent my identity is dependent on that significant others. So let me again take 2 minutes break. Welcome back. Now, Charles Taylor, after critically understanding the individual identity and its relation with significant others, Charles Taylor is now becoming critical about liberalism, or one aspect of the liberalism, that is equal recognition. Right. Now, Charles Taylor is making a provocating statement that equal recognition is not just the appropriate mode for healthy democratic society. Taylor is saying to sustain a healthy democratic society, equal recognition is not appropriate. Rather than equal recognition is a problem for healthy democratic society. He knew that if there is a widespread modern view, the refusal of equal recognition can inflict damage on those who are denied it. So he knew that if someone is against the equal recognition, it is a widespread view. If someone is against the equal recognition, then that someone is damaging to those who are denied equal recognition. That means it is the elite. They are not interested in equal recognition because they think that non-elites are not equal with elite. So Charles Taylor knew that people may criticize him that he is an elite, but Charles Taylor is critical about equal recognition in a different sense. Right. Now, to Charles Taylor, the discourse of recognition has become familiar to us on two levels. In intimate sphere, the formation of self and identity takes place in a continuous dialogue and struggle with significant others. In public sphere, the politics of equal recognition has come to play bigger and bigger role. Now, why he is saying that equal recognition is problematic for the healthy democratic society to Charles Taylor? Now, it is because Charles Taylor knew that the discourse of recognition on two levels, at the intimate sphere and at the public sphere. At the intimate sphere, and okay, let me say that when I'm saying equal recognition, here he understand recognition of all the individual. Every individual are same and they must be recognized. Equal recognition of the individual. It's saying that in the intimate sphere, the self is not complete. The self is having continuous dialogue with the significant others, thereby the self is deriving its own moral significance. So identity of an individual is not fixed, it is a continuous process. And in the public sphere, we talk about equal recognition. If my identity is not fixed, it is a continuous process. Your identity is a continuous process. Certainly, the identity of a professor is different from the identity of a student. The identity of a Brahmin is different from the identity of a non Brahmin. The identity of Hindu is different from the identity of a Muslim, because we have different significant others. My significant others is different from your significant others. My interaction is different from your interaction. My discussion overtly, my overt discussion and covert discussion is different from your overt and covert discussion. Hence, equal recognition is not possible to Charles Taylor. Now, Charles has concentrated on public sphere and he tried to understand the politics of equal recognition. So Charles knew that if you think recognition from intimate sphere, then we can easily understand that equal recognition is a myth. Equal recognition cannot be possible because our identities are not fixed. It is a continuous process. It is a continuous process. There is a continuous dialogue with the significant others. There is a continuous dialogue. You are having a dialogue with yourself, that is covert dialogue. You are having a dialogue with the significant others, that is a overt dialogue. So this dialogue is continuous, hence equal recognition is meaningless if you understand recognition from intimate sphere. But in the public sphere, we talk about equal recognition, right? Now, Charles Taylor has concentrated on the public sphere and he has tried to understand politics of equal recognition. Now, to him, politics of universalizing, emphasizing equal dignity of all citizens has come with the move from honor to dignity. Remember what I said in the beginning while talking on honor and dignity. Now, Charles knew that with the move from honor to dignity, we started emphasizing on equal dignity of all citizens, and thereby we were heading towards a politics of universalism. And the content of politics has been the equalization of right and entitlement. Now, once we were heading towards politics of universalism, once we are giving emphasis on equal dignity, then we started talking on equalization of right and entitlement. Now, to Charles, before we talk about equal rights and entitlement, we must avoid at all cost the existence of first class and second class citizens. So as long as the first class and second class citizens are there, then equalization of right, equal dignity of all citizens, and politics of universalism is not possible as long as first class and second class citizens are there. Now, for some, Taylor is saying, for some, equalization has affected the civil rights and voting rights. It has given civil rights and voting rights to the other. For some, on the other hand, people who are systematically handicapped by poverty, most of their citizenship rights has been relegated to second class status, requiring a remedial action through equalization process. Okay. Now Taylor knew that some people, they are in favor of equalization, as this equalization has given the civil right and voting rights to all citizens, and to some they are critical about equalization, but they have hope on equalization process. Why they are critical about the equalization? Because they knew that their socio-economic background is not that much rich where they can enjoy their citizenship right. Remember, while defining right, I said that I can exercise my right only when I am in a appropriate socio-economic situation. If I am handicapped by poverty, then can I enjoy my citizenship rights? No. Now my socio-economic condition can push me towards this second class citizen, and second class citizen, despite of having the constitutional rights, they cannot enjoy it. Now to enjoy the right, you have to become a first class citizen. Now Taylor knew that the group which is critical about the equalization process, it is also hopeful on the equalization process. How? Now that group also wants action, remedial action through equalization process. Here equalization process means positive discrimination, affirmative action. Now if I become a second class citizen, it is through positive discrimination I can be become, or I can be a first class citizen. Right. Now Taylor is saying, now Taylor is critical about the positive discrimination. Now Taylor is saying equalization must protect the distinctiveness. It must not facilitate the minority identity to assimilate to the dominant and majority identity, because this assimilation is a cardinal sin against the ideal of authenticity. Now he is saying that this equalization, it has given the rights, civil rights, political rights, and this equalization can also ensure the conversion of second class citizen into first class citizen through positive discrimination. The equalization can create a society where you will find all persons capable to enjoy their citizenship right equally. Despite of this, Charles Taylor is saying that this equalization will vanish the distinctiveness of small identity, minority identity, as this equalization is leading towards the assimilation of small identity into the dominant identity. Here, small identity means minority identity. Dominant identity means majority identity. So Charles is saying equalization is problematic because this equalization either, when I'm saying equalization, either it is based on the non-discrimination principle or the positive discrimination principle. This equalization is leading towards the assimilation of small identity or minority identity with dominant identity or majority identity. Thereby this equalization goes against the authenticity of the minority identity, small identity. Small identity. Remember when I said that every individual has a moral significance, like that every small identity has a moral significance, and that moral significance should not be surrendered. That moral significance should not be lost. But this equalization process is forcing the small identity to surrender their moral significance. Now, politics of difference is full of denunciation of discrimination. Now, to Charles Taylor, since Charles Taylor is an advocate of multicultural society, now to Charles Taylor, differences must be protected because our differences is our authenticity, our differences is our own moral significance, right? And the equalization process is diminishing the differences among us. This equalization process thereby has become discriminatory because it diminishes the moral significance of small identity. I'm repeating, this equalization process diminishes the moral significance of self-identity. Thereby, this equalization has become discriminatory, and politics of difference is the denunciation of discrimination as it recognizes the unique identity of individual and group. Through politics of dignity, politics of difference makes universal equality possible. Right? So what is saying that? Now politics of difference is against the equalization process because equalization process is all about the assimilation of the minority or the small identity with the dominant identity. And this politics of difference is protecting the unique identity of individual and group. And through politics of dignity, politics of difference makes universal equality possible. Charles Taylor is against the equalization process, but Charles Taylor is for the universal equality. Now, Charles Taylor is saying that universal equality is possible only when politics of difference will take the help of politics of dignity. So, let me define what is politics of difference and politics of dignity. Now, with the politics of difference, we are asked to recognize the unique identity of an individual and group. So, politics of difference holds that unique identity of individual and group must be there. And politics of dignity, with politics of dignity, we mean a basket of rights and immunities, right? Politics of dignity means some extra rights, some immunities must be given. Now, to Charles Taylor, universal equality cannot be possible through equalization process. Universal equality cannot be possible through the assimilation process. Universal equality is possible only when politics of difference accompanies the politics of dignity. That means the small identity will be there with the dominant identity, but the small identity will be given some extra rights, some immunities, so that the small identity can enjoy their right like the dominant identity. Right. Now, differential treatment becomes the most important character of universal equality. Differential treatment, not to equalize, not to assimilate, but differential treatment. Let this small identity exist and let this small identity gets their immunities. Right. Again, let me take for 2 minutes break. I'm coming back. Welcome back. So, we are talking about the differential treatment. This differential treatment is against the equalization process. This differential treatment is against the assimilation process. But this differential treatment is possible through certain immunities, through some extra rights, right? This differential treatment, in other words, what we can say, reverse discrimination, reverse discrimination, right? If not defended as a temporary measures to level the playing field, seems to be betrayal to the cherished of politics of dignity. So it is saying that this differential treatment or reverse discrimination, it must be defended temporarily. Word, this temporary is very important. Temporarily, it's not permanent. Temporarily to measure the temporary measures temporarily to level the playing field, right? So Charles Taylor is saying that this reverse discrimination, this affirmative action must be given to the small identity for a temporary period. Otherwise, the small identity may not enjoy their rights because they are having some lacunas in them. So reverse discrimination must be there. Without it, small identity may not enjoy their right. But this reverse discrimination will be there for a temporary period. If this reverse discrimination will continue or it will become permanent, then this reverse discrimination it will become a betrayal to the politics of dignity. It will destroy the values of politics of dignity, that each individual have a dignity and that dignity must be protected. If some will get the benefits of positive discrimination permanently, if some will get pain of positive discrimination permanently, then this should go against the dignity of the individual. Charles Taylor has used Immanuel Kant to expose that what commanded respect in us is our status as a rational agent, capable of directing our life through principle. Something like this has been the basis for our institution of equal dignity. Now, Charles is saying that when we talk about dignity and respect, we especially understand that this respect and dignity depends upon our status as a rational agent. If you are not rational, then you are not having any respect and dignity. You cannot have. Now, to ensure your dignity, to command your respect, one has to become rational. One has to become capable of directing his own life through principle. Right? So, as long as individuals are guided by the principle, individuals are rational, then that individual commands respect, that individual protects his or her own dignity. And the same thing is true for our institution as well. At the same time, Charles Taylor is saying it is the individual potential which ensures that each person deserves respect. Suppose a person is unable Okay, sorry. So the in the first place, the dignity and self-respect of an individual or an institution is based on his or her rational character, his or her capability to be guided as per the principle. And the respect and dignity is also related with individual's personality, right? That each person deserves respect. Okay, we must give respect to a person, we must honor the dignity of a person who through some circumstances has become incapable of realizing his or her own potential in normal way. Suppose a person has become incapable of realizing his potential due to some historical injustice, due to some accidental injustice, then that person also deserves the self respect and dignity. And we must respect that person, we must ensure the dignity of that person. Why? If such unfortunate circumstances would not have happened with that person, then that person would have been guided by the principles, that person would have been the rational person. Now, it is the universal potential which forms and defines individual identity, right? So, ultimately, the individual's identity depends on individual potentiality, individual's potentiality. It is also true in the context of a cultural identity of a nation state. So the identity of a nation depends on the potentiality of a nation. The identity of an individual is formed or is defined by his or her own potential. Failing to appreciate others' culture, giving a depreciatory judgment to them is not only factually mistaken but also morally wrong. So, to Charles Taylor, every individual, group, or any institution, they are part of universal potential. There is potential in each individual, in each group, and when we give a depreciatory judgment on any individual, on any group, then it is not only factually mistaken but also morally wrong. That means if I say that you do not have any identity, then I do mean that you do not have any potential. And this is something factually wrong. Every individual has potential. And that is also morally wrong. There are two modes of politics based on equal respect, and both come into conflict. One is the politics of positive discrimination, another is the politics of non discrimination. Politics of positive discrimination is also known as difference principle, and politics of non discrimination is also known as blind principle. Blind principle, that law will not discriminate. There is a black putty before the eyes of law, right? Discrimination, non discrimination, discrimination will not be happen. And positive discrimination means there are different kinds of people, all people are not same, hence some discrimination must be, reverse discrimination will be done to mitigate the discrimination among people. So that's why politics of positive discrimination known as the difference principle, and politics of non-discrimination is known as the blind principle. Reproaching the first makes the second just, as it violates the principles of non-discrimination. If you concentrate on politics of positive discrimination, then you will find politics of positive discrimination violates the politics of non-discrimination. And likewise, the politics of reapproaching the second. So the first is the politics of positive discrimination, second is the politics of non-discrimination. So reapproaching the first makes the second just as it violates the principles of non-discrimination. Reapproaching the second makes the first just as it negates the identities by forming people into a homogeneous mold. So if you see the politics of discrimination, then you will find politics of discrimination, positive discrimination violates non-discrimination. And if you see the non-discrimination, and if you think that non-discrimination is the right way for equal respect, then you will find that this non-discrimination assumes that every individual are same. So there are faults in both positive discrimination and negative discrimination. Non-discrimination, sorry. There are faults in positive discrimination, there are faults in the non-discrimination as well. Now, what is the right approach? Now, the right approach is the neutral approach between the difference and blind principle. The right approach is the neutral approach, a balanced approach between, in some situation, principles of positive discrimination or difference principle will be applied. In some situation, blind principle will be applied. But ultimately, whether difference principle or blind principle, ultimately we are establishing a homogeneous culture, a hegemonic society. And in such a situation, minority, I have already said it, in the context of assimilation, whether it is positive discrimination or negative discrimination, we are suppressing the small identity, we are suppressing the minority identity, and we are creating a homogeneous culture. And this homogeneous culture is a hegemonic culture, because this culture tries to become hegemon over the small identity, small culture. Now, in such a situation, the minority or suppressed or small culture were being forced to take the alien culture, and that alien culture is the dominant and hegemonic culture. So Charles Taylor is saying, this is something suppressing the small culture, assimilating the small culture with the alien culture or with the dominant culture, alienating the small culture from themselves. Now, this is something inhuman, and this is something highly discriminatory. The blind liberalism, here Charles Taylor is saying, liberalism assumes that everyone, they are blind, right? So liberalism in the end believes believes in establishing a hegemonic and homogeneous culture, right? And this is not the culture of, or this is not the culture based on minority culture or minority identity. This is not this hegemonic culture or homogeneous culture is not based on the identity of small or the identity of minority, not based on small identity. It based on dominant identity. It is based on majority culture. And we must not forget that this liberalism themselves are the reflection of a particular culture. So the liberalism which talks about equality, individual dignity, equalization process, The liberalism ultimately tries to establish a dominant culture, a majority, a culture based on dominant identity, thereby diminishing the small identity. Right. So that's why Charles Taylor is critical on liberalism, and this is his understanding of politics of recognition, that we must recognize our differences. We must go against the assimilation. We do not want a homogeneous culture. We do not want any hegemonic culture. We want our small identity to coexist with our dominant identity. So this is Charles Taylor for you. So thank you. Thank you very much.